So in the Applications of Quadratics review, we're looking at both the inverses and the graphing of the parabola using vertex, focus, and directrix. And so when we're doing inverses, what two things trade places? X and Y. So that means that the inverse of this is -7, 1. So on this next one, what do I need to do to my quarters to get to my dollars? What? Not flipping them yet. That's going to help us get us the inverse, but we need to actually come up with the original equation first. Okay, so we could put them in the spreadsheet and find the number. What do I need to do? What operation can I do to 4 to get to 1? And 16 and get to 4? That would work all of these all the way through. Divide by 4. So x divided by 4 is the equation that represents the table. So to find the inverse, I will switch those and become x equals y divided by 4. Then multiply both sides by 4, giving me y equals 4x. Any questions on that one? These next two are worked very similarly.
Shelby Smith comes.
And so I'm just going to show you how to work with one. And since we did a fraction on the last one, which one do y'all want me to work? The 5x or the 1/3 x? Okay. So rewrite it as y equals 1/3 x. Now I flip it. X equals 1/3 y. How can I separate that 1/3 away from the y? How can I get it to where it's a 1y? Flip it. So multiply by 3 over 1. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So 3x is equal to y, or y is equal to 3x. On these two, they both worked very similarly, but I'm going to go ahead and show you both of them. So it's originally y equals -6x minus 2. So I switch sides. And what am I going to do? How do I get the y by itself? Add 2. What do I do to get the -6 away from y? Divide by -6. As that means I'm going to have a -6 divided on both of those parts. So x divided by -6 plus 2 divided by -6 is equal to y. And I simplify that, that gets negative x over 6 minus 1/3 is equal to y, or y is equal to negative x sixth minus 1/3. On 7, what am I going to do first? This is the same thing as this. So what do I do first when I'm finding the inverse? We can't do that until we got them switched. And so now add the 8. So x plus 8 is equal to 2/3 y. Now I need to separate what away? How can I get the y by itself? What's being done to the y? Is it being added or subtracted or multiplied or divided? Multiplied. So how do you undo multiplication? We divide, which in this case, when you're dividing by a fraction, remember that is multiplying by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 3/2. As that 3/2 needs to multiply into both pieces. Those would cancel. And so I end up with 3/2 x. The 2 and the 8 can reduce, giving me a 4 up here. 3 times 4 is 12. So y is equal to 3/2 x plus 12. And so that's the inverse function. What is the inverse of number 8? Y equals 8. Change x to y, and you're done. Don't overcomplicate this problem. This problem in the number 1 question is going to be on the test. Don't lose the easy points. And don't forget you to have a note card, two-sided. So y is equal to 1/2 x squared. What do I do to solve this? What do I need to flip around first? And by doing just this step, that gives you some of the points for the test. Just showing me you know the x and y trade places. That gets you partial the credit. Now I need to get y by itself, so I need to multiply both sides by -2. And so I have -2x is equal to, those would cancel, y squared. How do I get rid of a square? Square root both sides. And so I have plus or minus the square root of -2x is equal to y. Don't forget when you're taking the square root, you always have to plus or minus. And the reason this one doesn't cause you problems is because it is, the domain would have to be restricted. So this one would have to have a domain of -infinity to +0, or till it's 0. Any questions on inverses? Inverses are going to take about half the test. The other half of the test is going to come from the graphs of parabolas and the information of parabolas, the vocabulary of parabolas. So how do I do number 10 and 11?
I tried to put them in a spreadsheet and do it like that. But
Yes,
it wasn't working.
that's correct. You should be doing it in the spreadsheet.
Yes, but I was making mistakes somewhere.
Okay, so you type it in the spreadsheet. The X goes in the A column. And so if you haven't done this and weren't successful, go ahead and get a calculator out. And the Y values go in the B column. And even if you were successful, it wouldn't hurt to practice. And so after you've typed all your values of X in the A column and all your values of Y in the B column, what do you do next? You hit menu. Menu. Oops, I can't spell menu. Evidently, I still can't. And go to 4. And then
413.
416.
Oh. The quadratic regression.
Quadratic regression. I believe it's 416. Is that the right numbers?
Yes. So in X and Y list, are you just putting X and Y?
You're just putting.
Are you putting the
Oh.
A?
I'm about to show you what you're going to put in those. So an X list, you are going to write A with a square bracket afterward. Remember, you can find that square bracket by control and the closed, I think it's closed parenthesis. No, open parenthesis. And then the Y list is B and that square bracket. And then close out of that portion. And then it's going to give you an A, B, C. And it's ax squared plus bx plus c. And A, B, and C are numbers that you're going to round to the nearest thousandth. So that means 1, 2, 3 decimal places is where you're rounding to. So that's just a process of using the calculator. You can double check your math on it by plugging that in the program and make sure that you get the right answer. These next ones are don't overcomplicate me problems. Only thing that's difficult about it is choosing the right equation type. So remember, we have two different equation types. Y squared is equal to 4px, and x squared is equal to 4py. So how do I know if it's going to be an x squared or y squared? Which way it opens, the concavity. So which one is when it opens up and down? X. And the Y is when it opens left and right. Okay? So the things we need to be able to do this, these are all the ones that are centered at the origin. So that's the reason we're going to be using this format of the equation. And we need to know what P is. How do I find P? P is the distance from the vertex to the focus. So I went down 5. So So P is negative 5. If I go down or left, it's negative. And so I'm doing this one, x squared is equal to 4 times P times y. So x squared is equal to negative 20y. So this time, my P is all the way over here, or my focus is all the way over here. So what is my P? How far from the vertex to the focus?
Would it be negative 16?
P is negative 16 because I went left. So x squared is equal to 4 times negative 16y. Don't know where I was going with that number. That was not the number I wanted. Negative 64y. And so make sure you can identify different things from the parabola, like your axis of symmetry, your directrix, things like that. Oh, gosh, yes, it will count that wrong. Which way did we open? Left and right. So that means I'm on this equation. So y squared is equal to 4 times negative 16 times x. So y squared is equal to negative 64x. What's different on the next set? Where's my vertex?
It's on 3 here.
So I'm no longer at the origin. So that means that those origin equations I can't use. So now I have a choice of y minus k squared equals 4p x minus h squared, or it's h, not squared. And then the other one was x minus h squared, that quantity squared, times 4p times y minus k. And so just remember that on your vertex HK, the H will always go with the X's and the K will always go with the Y's. So where's my axis of symmetry? Y equals 0. What is my value for P? And so you found it as 2 because this distance is 2. And it's to the right, so it's positive. Therefore, my equation, is it going to be y squared or x squared? Okay. And so we have y minus my y value, which is 0, squared equals 4 times p x minus h, which is 3. And so let's simplify that down. We have y squared is equal to 8 x minus 3. What was your question? Okay. If it comes back to you or you still have it in this next one, ask.
Yes.
So this next one, my vertex is here. So where's that vertex at?
It's -2, -1.
Axis of symmetry, is it x equals or y equals?
Should be
My p-value, it'd be 0.5 or 0.5, but is it going to be positive or negative? Am I going up? Or, yeah. Or you could have said like -1/2. So if I go to the equation, is it going to be y minus k squared equals 4p x minus h, or is it going to be x minus h squared equals 4p y minus k? It's going to be the x squared. So x minus a -2 squared plus 4 times, what was our p? Times y minus k. What is our k? When you're subtracting a negative, it's the same as adding it. 4 times a -1/2, or 4 times -0.5 is y minus a -1. That's going to be the same as 4y plus 1. So that's your answer. These here, I have to do a sketch to be able to see it in my head. It doesn't have to be a pretty sketch. I'm going to give y'all some graph paper to do it on tomorrow if you need it. But it doesn't have to be graphed. -3, -8. And then you're going to apply your points on it. So that's your focus. And your directrix is at y equals 6. So where would my vertex fall between those two? What's staying the same? My y value or my x value? Your y value. Another way of remembering it is whatever that variable is. So that means that we need to figure out where the midpoint of those two is. So -8 plus 6 is going to be -2. -2 over 1 means that I have -2 as my numerator divided by 2, which gives me 1. It's me, -1. So -1 comma -8 is my vertex. And so is it going to be y squared equals 4, y minus k squared equals 4p x minus h, or is it going to be x minus h squared equals 4p y minus k? Which one am I going to be using? Is the parabola turning sideways or up and down? It's not x squared. So, oh, x. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yes, x squared. You're going to the next part of the question. X minus h is x minus a negative 1 squared equals 4p. What is my p? What is my distance from my vertex, which is not written in there correctly? -3, -1. What is the distance from that vertex to my focus, which is at -3, -8? It'd be -7 because I went down 7. So 4 times -7, y minus a -1. So x plus 3 squared is equal to -28 y plus 1. And that's your equation. I'll probably get you to tell me where your vertex is. And I'll probably get you to tell me what P is. And that way I can give you points for everything of it you get right. Or for the using of what your incorrect information is correctly. And I will give you some graph paper in this section. Not because I want to see a graph, but in case you need to sketch it out to visualize it. Okay? The parabola has a focus at -7, -5, and it has a directrix at -3 of x equals -3. So where's halfway between those two? So that midpoint between those two is going to be changing on your x's because it's x equals. So -5 plus -3 divided by 2. -10 divided by 2, which is -5. That's our x value of our vertex. The y value stays the same. So this is going to be x minus h squared equals 4p y minus k? Or is it going to be y minus k squared equals 4p x minus h? Y squared or x squared? Y squared, because it's opening horizontally. Be careful on this. This one is not going to be as obvious because they're the same number. That -5 squared is equal to 4p, which was negative, what was our p? Was our distance to our, between our vertex and our focus? -2. X minus a -5. And so y plus 5 squared is equal to -8 x plus 5. And like I said, on these problems, I am going to ask you what your vertex is, what your P is, and the equation. That way I can kind of track what you're doing and give you credit if you get parts of it right. So now we're going to graph it. Where is my vertex?
Zero,
0, 0. Is this graph opening up and down or left and right?
up and down.
Okay. And so now I need to find my P. And my P is always going to come from whatever this number is. So -4 equals 4P. And solve for P. Divide both sides by 4. -1 is equal to P. And so that tells me my distance away from the vertex is 1 unit to the left. And that gives me my focus. So my vertex is here, my focus is here. Oh, wait a minute. Not to the left, because we said up and down, right? So 1 unit down. And so my directrix is 1 unit the other way. And then all I'm looking to see is your sketch like this. Now I do want you to label your directrix, which we already have drawn there, and your axis of symmetry. And so my directrix is y equals 1. My axis of symmetry is x equals 0. And the last one, how do I find out where my vertex is? Where it goes opposite. So opposite of -1 is 1. Opposite of positive 2 is -2. So 1, -2. P is 4P is equal to -4. So divide both sides by 4. And P is equal to -1. Is this graph opening left and right or up and down? So that means I go back -1 here. And my directrix goes up and down. And I draw in my parabola. It's my directrix. And that's at x equals 2. Axis of symmetry is y equals -2. Any questions on any of those? You may have a note card, two-sided, write whatever you want to on it, except for vocabulary. Any vocabulary written on your note card will be immediately thrown away.